And joining me right now is Century Aluminum CEO Jesse Gary. Jesse, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me back, Maria.
I want to first begin with the news that we've been reporting all morning, and that is Israel attacking Iran's nuclear facilities. And I'm wondering if you're expecting a disruption in terms of European supplies. I know that you're really largely talking about the U.S. supply, but is there any impact in terms of what took place overnight?
Yes, there very well could be, Maria. Earlier this year, when there were the Houthi attacks on some of the shipping supply chains through the Red Sea, we did see disruptions going into Europe, and supply chains needed to reroute around the southern tip of Africa. And we very well could see a similar response there. But we wouldn't expect to see supply chain disruptions coming into the United States.
So terrific. How has the president's 50% tariffs impacted your business, Jesse, and the U.S.?
Well, it's been tremendous for both U.S. demand and for our business specifically. Here at Century Aluminum, we've announced we'll build the first new smelter to be built in the U.S. in over 50 years. That will double U.S. production, create 1,000 new permanent jobs and over 6,000 jobs during construction. And since I was last on this program, Maria, there's actually been a second project announced of similar size to ours. And so as a result of the president's tariffs, and he said this directly himself, you now have projects that will triple the size of existing U.S. industry and really bring back the U.S. aluminum industry and U.S. aluminum production to where we need it to be.
This is a huge point, Jesse, particularly as it relates to the military and the U.S.'s use of aluminum in military. Production and supply chains are shifting, especially as Century Aluminum builds that first new aluminum smelter in nearly 50 years. In 2000, we had 23 aluminum smelters, while Canada had 10. Now the U.S. has only 4 smelters to Canada's 10. Walk us through that. Why? And is Canada subsidizing the industry? Is that part of the issue?
Yeah, you've got it exactly right, Maria. So if we just go back to 2018, following the implementation of the 232 tariffs, U.S. aluminum production increased by 50%. So the tariffs were extremely effective. But as administration changed over, Canada was granted an exemption by the Biden administration, and Canada immediately increased their imports by 35% from where they were under the Trump administration. This resulted in 2 additional U.S. smelters closing over that time period. And so you saw a direct impact of Canadian surge costing American jobs. And the reason why you see that the number of Canadian smelters staying where it is they do subsidize their aluminum production. The OECD found there's been nearly $1 billion of subsidies to Canadian aluminum producers from the Canadian government, mostly in the form of energy subsidies in Quebec.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking so much about the innovations in America, from military to technology and AI. Who are your biggest customers in terms of sectors, Jesse? Automakers have been complaining about the tariffs, saying, oh, it's a $5 billion hit to earnings. It's going to cost us more. Who are your biggest customers, and what do you want to say about the outlook for the aluminum industry here at home and across the globe?
Well, we sell into all sections of the economy. Aluminum is really everywhere in the U.S. economy. It goes into automotive, as you mentioned, into building and construction, into energy transmission, and into packaging. And we're seeing strong demand across all of those sectors. And just to your point on prices, Maria, I mean, we all saw the CPI print earlier this week. Really, we haven't seen any inflationary impact from the tariffs, and that's in line with all of the studies that have been done on the 2018 tariffs. We predicted there wouldn't be inflationary impact. Now we can see there hasn't been inflationary impact, and so I think this argument's really a red herring. The truth is, with commodities like steel and aluminum, at least, by the time you reach the end product, any price effects are largely diluted, and you really don't see any price impact.
Well, I mean, this is a really important point that you're making, Jesse. I mean, look, you've been hearing from the scare tactic people out there saying, oh, President Trump's tariffs are going to cause inflation. That didn't happen at all. We saw it on both the consumer level and the producer level this week with the CPI and the PPI. Why do you think that is? Because you look at your stock this morning, Century Aluminum, and you just reported, your first quarter earnings per share were below expectations, but revenue was more than $630 million. Your stock is up 27% in just the month, Jesse. So why do you think it is that the president's policies have actually been effective and have flown in the face of these skeptics trying to talk about inflation related to tariffs, when in fact it was actually inflation under the Biden administration, which of course spent $7 trillion and overdid it on COVID handouts?
Well, I think that the president understands the manufacturing economy better than anyone. And what we saw under the Biden administration was there was a lot of globalist, free trade thought that's been entrenched in this country for a number of years. But what we've seen in practice is that the president's policies to put America first, bring back manufacturing jobs to this country, are actually what's driving demand growth for products like steel and aluminum here in the U.S. When we build things here domestically with things that are produced here domestically, which create jobs here domestically, that's really the path forward for this country, to create these high-paying jobs that create the families and create the great communities that we've grown to love in this country.
Yeah, not to mention, these are national security issues, Jesse. I know you would agree. I mean, you've got to have a production infrastructure in your own country and not rely on potential adversaries. Jesse, before you go, can you give us this assessment of what you're looking for the rest of the year in terms of the economy, the broad economy here? How do you see things?
Yeah. We're often a bellwether a bit, Maria, and the good news for the broader economy is we are seeing strong demand across all of our end markets right now, and it's increasingly improving as we move through the year. So we're seeing pull from our customers, bringing in more aluminum demand, and so we think that should be a good sign for the rest of the economy. We think the second half looks pretty good, and as we find increased certainty on a number of issues that are out there, some geopolitical, some tax-related. We think that will only improve things.
All right, we will leave it there. We're waiting on more clarity on the big, beautiful bill and all these trade deals as well. Jesse, it's good to see you. Please come back soon, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
All right, Jesse Gary is the CEO of Century Aluminum, and we'll be right back.